Guys, we manifested this, all right? We manifested a win for Charles Oliveira. He gets it done in the second round via rear naked choke. This went about as I expected. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a couple of worries. All right, maybe Charles Oliveira's chin is completely cooked. Gamrot did tag him with a couple of shots, and there was a worry that if Gamrot was able to take Charles Oliveira down, maybe Charles Oliveira plays around in his guard too much and he just sits there and let Gamrot take top control. But, like I said, Charles Oliveira's ground game is elite. And just because Ilya Taporia was able to cut through Charles Oliveira's guard doesn't mean Mateusz Gamrot can, alright? There are levels to this, and Charles Oliveira proved it tonight. Right off the bat, as Mateusz Gamrot shot him for a single and then took him down, Charles Oliveira pulled the guillotine and then transitioned that into a sickle armbar. All right, and he was doing a good job of holding him still. All right, Mateusz Gamrot wasn't really able to escape because Charles Oliveira did a good job of hooking the left leg of Mateusz Gamrot, preventing Gamrot from really getting out until he like forcefully gave up his back. And from there, Charles Oliveira was able to secure back control, sunk in a couple of rear naked chokes, all right, and then the first round ended. Second round starts, Oliveira walks his ass down, beats him up. Mateusz Gamrot was landing a couple of shots, but eventually, all right, Oliveira was able to take the fight to the ground and secure the back of Mateusz Gamrot before sinking in the rear naked choke. Charles Oliveira is not washed. He is back better than ever. We will beat Max Holloway in the rematch. Charles Oliveira calls out Max Holloway right after for the post-fight interview, and I really love that fight. And then once we beat Max Holloway, we will beat Ilya Taboria via heel hook, and we will become the lightweight champions once more. All right, just you wait. The Charles Oliveira title run starts now. All right, now moving on to the rest of the card, we got Deiveson Figuereido versus Montel Jackson. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I could argue a win for Montel Jackson, but I'm not going to. All right, Deiveson Figuereido, like, yeah, he was able to take down Montel Jackson in the first and the second round, but realistically, Montel Jackson was landing the crispier and better shots on the feet, especially in the second round. Actually, not especially, but it was kind of close. I just thought that Montel Jackson just landed the cleaner shots, but then Davidson Figueredo did have like a minute and a half worth of control time. So I guess there's that. But my issue is Montel Jackson didn't really throw much of anything. That was really annoying, right? Davison Figueiredo is Brazilian. We're fighting in Brazil. We all know that Brazil is one of the most corrupt places when it comes to judging a fight. I don't know why Montel Jackson decided to try and toast a split decision victory against Davidson Figueiredo in Brazil. Like, if this were close, all right, you are not getting the win, Montel Jackson, all right? Even though I feel like he kind of should have, but it's not clear. And also, Montel Jackson should have done more. All right. I watched Montel Jackson just kind of sit there and just like throw pitter patter shots at times. Not at times, for like 10 minutes of the fight. And I'm just sitting there going like, yeah, if you hit Figueiredo a little bit more, I think the rounds can be clearer. But no, all right. A lot of these rounds were very close. Like, again, when I say I edge it to Montel Jackson, I mean like very slightly. All right. And that by default means that Davidson Figueiredo wins because we're in Brazil. So yeah, I'm gonna say Davidson Figueiredo. He did a good job. Montel Jackson could have won this fight, but I don't know. He just kind of stood there and did nothing. Anytime he had a chance to like seal the deal, and yeah, that was a very frustrating fight for me because I picked Montel Jackson to win this fight. But as for Davidson Figueiredo, he came out better than when he fought Corey Sandhagen. All right, he actually looked to be aggressive a little bit more. Right? It wasn't that much. Like Figueiredo doesn't really throw that many shots, but he actually, pressed forward and then shot takedowns and then just didn't give up leg locks and guard. like what he did in the Corey Sandhagen fight. So I guess that's a plus. So Deiveson Figuereido wins. He said he's still vying for a title shot in the future. So let's see how it goes. All right. Probably give him someone like who would he fight? Like, cause he fought nearly everybody in the top five that's around him right now. I don't know. He's probably gonna have to fight one more guy like go underneath him in the rankings. But it'd be interesting to see who the UFC matches him up with. All right, now moving on. We got Vicente Luque versus Joel Alvarez. What do I say about this fight? All right, first off, the referee. Yeah, he should immediately be fired. Right? He basically let Vicente Luque off the hook on this one. All right, Joel Alvarez dropped Vicente Luque with a clean punch. And I wouldn't say clean, but like it was a legal punch that Joel Alvarez dropped Vicente Luque with. Luque thought it was an eye poke, and for a while it looked like Luque couldn't continue. But for some reason, the ref just looked at it, got the doctor in, waved the fight off. Then all of a sudden, we're in the second round. I have no idea what just happened in that sequence, but Joel Alvarez was basically robbed of a finish. Right? That is inexcusable. Right? Like it wasn't like it was near the end of the round and we'll just call it like then. No, it was like Joel Alvarez should have clearly won that because Vicente Luque, it looked like he couldn't continue for a while, right? And the ref gave him 4 minutes, even though there was no official like timeout for like an eye poke because it wasn't, all right? It was the knuckle of Joel Alvarez's left hand that hit Vicente Luque in the eye, and the Vicente Luque went down. All right, like that should have been considered a legal TKO. But I'm just gonna say this though. Yeah, no, the second and third round was even worse. Right now, Vicente Luque, I said that if he makes it to a decision, I'll be happy. I'm not happy about this. All right, I feel even worse. I would have rather seen Vicente Luque get slept out cold in the first round. Right in the second round, Joel Alvarez just bullied this man, and Luque couldn't do anything other than pull guard and then give up his back. And it was just a repeat of those two moves over and over again from the second round. Like Joel Alvarez is just landing nasty ground and pound shots. All right. Definitely a 10-8. Again, that fight arguably should have been stopped in the second round. But the referee, again, we're in Brazil. He probably put a parlay on Luque to go to the decision. Like, matter of fact, he should be investigated just for that. Just for the second round alone. But it's on top of what he did in the first round. Like, dude should be fired immediately. Like, I do not want to see that guy repping any sort of UFC fight ever again. All right, now up next we got Jhonata Diniz versus Mario Pinto. Mario Pinto's actually pretty impressive, right? I thought that this was going to be a relatively, like, eeky striking match at heavyweight. All right, both of the guys. All right, for heavyweights, they're like pretty good on the feet. Jhonata Diniz, like even though he is a fat blob, right, he has pretty good kickboxing at least in the early rounds. And Mario Pinto, on the other hand, I thought he was gonna take his time, make his reads, and then eventually try to pick the pace up, like towards the later rounds of the fight. But that's not what happened. Mario Pinto actually grappled, and his grappling looked pretty good. He almost got an Americana in the first round of the fight. If he had pulled the arm in towards him a little bit, I do think he would have got it, but still, that's a 250-pound man trying to rip your arm out. So hats off to Jhonata Diniz for escaping that because, like, shit, that looked pretty tight for a second. But right after that, Mario Pinto, there was just one-way traffic. Like, Jhonata Diniz had nothing to offer. Like, even on the feet, like, Diniz was so hesitant because he knew that he could have just got taken down in, like, a split second. And Mario Pinto was able to take advantage of that in the second round. And Diniz, it was really bad, right? Mario Pinto just beat his ass for a really long time. And the referee just stepped in there because what is Diniz gonna do at that point? All right, he already had like 10 minutes, more specifically like 9 minutes, but like he had a lot of time to try and figure things out. I don't see it going past it, and Mario Pinto was beating the crap out of him with ground and pound shots. So yeah, it was a good win from Mario Pinto. I do say, I think he's actually really good. I think he can be like top 8, like maybe top 5 potentially. I don't know, depends on the matchups that Mario Pinto gets in the future. But I gotta mention this: Mario Pinto's post-fight interview. It was actually pretty funny. All right, this guy faked not being able to speak English fluently, and the second he was given the mic, he spoke English fluently, like a British guy. It was actually really funny to see Michael Bisping just like surprised because I don't know. I think we were all surprised that Mario Pinto spoke English more fluently than like nearly 90% of the roster after telling everyone that he's working on his English. So yeah, Mario Pinto gets the job done. I say give him a ranked opponent. All right. I know he's young and the heavyweight division is in need of building prospects, but I think Mario Pinto is a very complete fighter right now. I mean, he can still improve. He's very young. So I do think there's room for improvement, but Mario Pinto, as it stands, is a top heavyweight in the UFC. So let's give him a sizable jump up. Bare minimum, get him someone within the top 10. All right, now up next, we got Ricardo Ramos versus Kaan Ofli. Now, I picked Ricardo Ramos to win this fight because I refuse to pick Kaan Ofli to win fights. And Kaan Ofli, he actually looked pretty good out there, right? Ricardo Ramos, right off the bat, he was trying to pull for knee bars and shit. I don't know how they got into that position, but like Ramos, once they got to the ground, Ramos was just kept trying to pull all sorts of knee bars, ankle locks, and heel hooks, even I believe one time. Well, yeah, once Ramos couldn't get those in, Kaan Ofli was able to escape and then get the back of Ricardo Ramos and then choke him out with a rear naked choke. All right, Ricardo Ramos, I will say I was very disappointed. He barely fought the hands. He just kind of accepted the fact that Colin Offley's on his back. He did not try anything to shake him off. I understand that the body triangle was in, but like it was a standing rear naked choke, so like there are some options there. All right, I'm not saying that Ricardo Ramos like needed to like just immediately shuck him off, but still like you could do better than just letting Con Offley sink in the rear naked choke. All right, and overall, I'm gonna say this though. Ramos should be cut from the UFC straight up. I don't think Con Offley's still good, but he did beat Ricardo Ramos definitively, and he proved to be the better fighter. So I guess Con Offley gets to keep his job. Again, I still don't believe in him. Like, just watch his Muhammad Naimov fight. That was complete garbage. So let's see where Con Offley stands. All right, I don't think he's gonna last that much longer in the UFC, but he's not bottom feeder because he beat the bottom feeder in Ricardo Ramos. All right, now moving on, we got Lucas Almeida versus Michael Aswell. Yeah, I went with Lucas Almeida with this. Again, Michael Aswell has not looked impressive to me, but he looks way different than when he fought Balaji Oki, which to be fair was on short notice. All right, Michael Aswell came out as the aggressor and just whooped up Lucas Almeida's ass. And Lucas Almeida, trying to fight back like a warrior. Unfortunately, he forgot that he doesn't know how to fight at a high level. And Michael Aswell just bullied his ass, took him to the ground, nasty ground and pound shots. The referee Loki wanted to see a body, and Lucas Almeida was about to die. And then finally, Jason Herzog steps in. For some reason, like Jason Herzog will let prelim fighters nearly die and then try to prove themselves as warriors. But for a main event fight like Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov, Jason Herzog is very jumpy to step in after Imavov lands 2 punches to Cannonier's chin. Overall, I'm going to say Michael Aswell, I underestimated this guy. I still don't think he's that good. I still think he's got a long ways to go because first off, it's Lucas Almeida, and second off, it's the featherweight division. All right, you got to win a couple of fights before I really tout you as a prospect in the featherweight division. But hopefully, Michael Aswell gets a jump up in competition. Again, Lucas Almeida is bottom feeder level. So we got to give Michael Aswell somebody a little bit better than Lucas Almeida. Maybe give him Kaan Ofli, who we just talked about, and let's see who's the better fighter amongst those two guys. All right, now up next we got Jafel Filho versus Clayton Carpenter. Jafel Filho gets it done in the first round. I'm gonna say this though. I really underestimated Jafel Filho's jiu-jitsu. Now, I understood that Filho's got really good jiu-jitsu, but like I was like, I've seen a couple of guys being able to escape, right? And sure, like those guys did have a hard time dealing with Jafel Filho's jiu-jitsu, but it's not impossible, right? But turns out Jafel Filho's jiu-jitsu is actually really good. And the only guys who can escape it like Muhammad Makayev and Alan Nascimento, who's a very underrated flyweight prospect. Jafel Filho, did he get taken down? I forgot the sequence as to how that fight ended up on the ground. I think it was Clayton Carpenter that shot for a takedown. But then Jafel Filho was able to pull his guard and then get a nasty Kimura. And Clayton Carpenter couldn't do much of anything because Jafel Filho was doing a very good job of angling himself off and working the arm incredibly hard. All right, Jafel Filho gets it done via round one Kimura. Again, like I thought that Clayton Carpenter was gonna be good enough to like survive, but Jafel Filho, like he's actually really good, and you need some like elite level jiu-jitsu game on top of your wrestling in order to survive against Jafel Filho. All right, Clayton Carpenter, he's a good wrestler, but I did think that he didn't have the jiu-jitsu to compete with Jafel Filho. I did think it was gonna be enough just because he could just get out of the triangles and stuff. But no, Jafel Filho's guard game's actually elite. So it's gonna take someone who's actually really good. Alright, I'm gonna say that Jafel Filho, he's like somewhere around the top 20 of the flyweight division right now. Alright, he had that iffy fight with Nalan Nascimento, but since he's come back, alright, I'm gonna say that Jafel Filho's looking pretty solid. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see whether or not he can make it to the rankings. I say there's a shot. It just depends on the matchups he's given. All right, now moving on, we got Vitor Petrino versus Thomas Petersen. Now, Vitor Petrino slumped out Thomas Petersen out cold with a brutal left hook. But let me just say this, Vitor Petrino looked like dog shit throughout the rest of the fight. All right, so I expected Vitor Petrino to either take Thomas Petersen down and then sub him, or just knock his ass out on the feet in the first round, straight up. Right? What happened was Vitor Petrino shot him for the takedowns, and then Thomas Petersen was able to defend the single legs. Vitor Petrino, for some reason, still holding Petersen up against the cage instead of backing off and then striking with him on the feet. And then Petrino, like he was gassing out a little bit because he kept trying to hold down Thomas Petersen up against the fence. Now, Thomas Petersen, I'll say this, he's not bottom feeder level in the heavyweight division, but he's not that good. All right, I expected Vitor Petrino to perform a lot better, and the fact that Thomas Petersen, right, was doing having moments in this fight is kind of concerning. All right, I understand that Vitor Petrino won the first round, dropped Petersen in the second, before getting held up against the fence. And in the third round, up until the KO, nothing really happened, but still. All right, I just expected more from Vitor Petrino, considering he wants to be a legitimate prospect in the heavyweight division. And if you're going to be a legitimate prospect in the heavyweight division, all right, you got to put away Thomas Petersen in the first or second round. Like, fucking goodness sakes, Shamil Gaziev could do it. And I understand that Shamil Gaziev's the GOAT, but realistically, Vitor Petrino is actually built, right? Vitor Petrino is an actual athletic phenom, whereas Shamil Gaziev is kind of a fat blob. So yeah, I'm very disappointed in Vitor Petrino, but he's still got one of the nastiest KOs of the year. So I guess it kind of makes up for it, but still, I expect him to do a lot better in the future. And if he continues to perform like this, though, I don't think his chances are going to be all that good when we talk about him potentially being ranked in the heavyweight division. All right, now up next we got Bia Mesquita versus Irina Alekseeva. Now I had some worries about Bia Mesquita, but she actually exceeded my expectations. All right, she not only was able to implement high level grappling against Irina Alekseeva, repeatedly taking her down, throwing some nasty ground and pound, and eventually winning via submission. I think it was a rear naked choke. Right, Bia Mesquita looks very competent, which is hard to do in the unranked sections of the women's bantamweight division. Right, it's clear that Bia Mesquita's jiu-jitsu actually translates to mixed martial arts. Now I understand that it's against Irina Alekseeva, who is like bottom feeder level in the women's bantamweight division, but you don't really see submission wins in the unranked sections of the women's bantamweight division. So it's going to be interesting to see how far Bia Mesquita can go, right? Because her grappling looks really good. Now, there's gonna be at some point where she gets tested on the feet, and there are some questions regarding Bia Mesquita's striking. But as far as the ground game goes, I think she submits like most of the unranked women's fighters in the bantamweight division. So I'd say she's like a legitimate prospect to be out on the lookout for. All right, Bia Mesquita is actually really good. All right, now moving on, we got Lucas Rocha versus Stewart Nicoll. I actually predicted this fight. All right, Lucas Rocha beat Stewart Nicoll pretty unanimously. All right, I just do not rate Stewart Nicoll in the first place. And Lucas Rocha, he must have had the same vision. I don't understand how Stewart Nicoll was able to get into the UFC. Right, he just shot telegraph takedown after telegraph takedown. His striking is just non-existent. Like he can land some punches, but there's no thud to them whatsoever. And his jiu-jitsu is very underwhelming to say the very least. Lucas Rocha does not have an elite level grappling game. All right, Lucas Rocha is a very good striker who gets taken down against anybody who's got decent level grappling in the flyweight division. Lucas Rocha just pieced up Stewart Nicoll for 3 rounds straight. Unfortunately, Lucas Rocha doesn't have any power because I did think that Stewart Nicoll could have been knocked out a couple of times throughout this fight. And overall, Stewart Nicoll, again, should not belong in the UFC. Lucas Rocha gets to keep his job. That's Stewart Nicoll, because at this point, what do you do with the guy? Lucas Rocha wins via 30, 27, 29, 28 decision. It was an okay fight. I just wish Lucas Rocha had a little bit more power to knock out Stewart Nicoll. All right, now moving on, we got Julia Polastri versus Karolina Kovacevic. Now, I'm going to be very generous when I say this. I think Karolina Kovacevic could transition to OnlyFans. And before you say that's sexist, Karolina Kovacevic literally has an OnlyFans. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm being sexist or not. Like, I'm just saying she should fully commit to that instead of fighting mixed martial arts. Because Julia Polastri just beat her ass for 3 rounds straight, and Kovacevic could not do anything about it. All right. Julia Polastri just walked her down on the feet. On the ground, Julia Polastri just mauled her. And in the third round, Polastri got a beautiful head kick and then dropped Karolina Kovacevic and got it nasty TKO. Julia Polastri beats Karolina Kovacevic pretty decisively. So there's nothing more to say about that. It was actually a pretty good fight. Right? I thought it was going to be a very uneventful 29-28 classic WMMA decision. But no, Polastri is actually pretty good. Maybe it's because Karolina Kovacevic is completely washed. But, I don't know. For a women's MMA fight, it was actually pretty fun. Last but not least, we got Luan Lacerda versus Simon Oliveira. Yeah, straight up just cut Simon Oliveira from the UFC. Luan Lacerda wins by round 2 armbar. Yeah, it was an armbar. Yeah, the first round, Luan Lacerda just ground and pounds Simon Oliveira to a pulp. Right, it could have been argued a 10-8, but Simon Oliveira did have his moments. Simon Oliveira was able to kind of scramble with Luan Lacerda, but every time Oliveira had opportunities to either disengage or just, advance position, Luan Lacerda just took advantage of Simon Oliveira's incompetence because Simon Oliveira just freely gave positions away because he loved to stand still when he's clearly losing a fight, and he just reversed the position of someone who's been ground and pounding him nonstop for like 2 minutes of the fight. Simon Oliveira gets submitted via armbar in the second round. I still don't think Luan Lacerda is good. It's just that he fought Simon Oliveira. So, congrats to Luan Lacerda. You get to keep your job. And as for Simon Oliveira, you're probably PFL bound. Let me count the number of fights I got right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got this one wrong. I got this one wrong. I got this one wrong. A 6, 7. I got this one wrong. 8. So I went 8-4 on this card. Not bad, but yeah, I do think I could have done better. All right. I don't know. Like, you guys are probably not watching these videos for my predictions, but still. But yeah, overall, I'm gonna say it was a very solid card. All right. Even the fights that I didn't really care for, it was actually pretty good, right? Especially because Charles Oliveira beat Mateusz Gamrot, right? Honestly, I could have just been happy with that. This entire fight card could have been complete dog shit. Well, I would have rated it like a 7 out of 10 just because Charles Oliveira submitted Mateusz Gamrot in the second round. So yeah, I'm gonna sleep happy tonight. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can get this channel monetized. But otherwise, leave a comment down below what you guys thought about UFC Rio, Charles Oliveira versus Mateusz Gamrot. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. Peace.